So on today's episode, we have a very special Duggar super source joining us. So we have Caleb Williams with us here today to discuss just how he got drug into this mess and how we know that he had nothing to do with this crime at all, which y'all know I have said this since before trial on the podcast. So we're just going to get right into it.
Hello.
So you were the scapegoat for the Josh Duggar trial.
I was. It was quite harrowing, and I wasn't super thrilled with the position I was put into. And I was kind of shocked by it, honestly.
I mean, it makes sense from a defense standpoint why they used you as a scapegoat. I mean, I hate that they used a scapegoat. I'm not surprised that they used a scapegoat, but why don't you go into just, a little bit about how you ended up being the scapegoat for this case?
Yeah. So I was in close proximity to the Duggars for quite a while. We've been friends for many years now. Um, I was. I got in trouble a few years ago. I don't need to go into all the details, but it left me. Now I am on the sex offender registry. I'm required to register, and um, that was probably very attractive to Josh's team to try to get somebody that was in close proximity and potentially could have been there as a scapegoat for his crime. That was a challenge because I really cared about Josh a lot. I still, these people were my friends. They were almost like family for me, all of them. And I had thought Josh had reformed. I had no idea this kind of stuff was going on, and it was quite a shock for me when the evidence was put forward over the summer and such. But really, I think the biggest difference in this was I what I did was wrong, regardless of the circumstances. I don't need excuses for them. I told the story, and that's all there is to it. And I acknowledge my wrong. I acknowledge the harm that it caused, and I'm just trying to move forward. And I'm trying to bring light to some topics that are sometimes not given a lot of light. They aren't discussed a lot because they're not pretty topics. They're not simple topics. So there's a lot of complexity to this, but I think that is why.
Which, again, it makes total sense because of your background, why they would try to use you as a scapegoat. You're the perfect scapegoat. But like you said, unlike Josh, you have admitted wrongs, you've owned your mistakes, and you're trying your best every day to move forward, which is all you can ask of anyone. But it just, again, sucks that you had to be the scapegoat. We want to clear up for everyone how we know that despite the fact you were thrown under the bus as the scapegoat, that you, in fact, did not commit these crimes for sure.
Oh, yeah. The evidence.
The evidence. And there's plenty of it because you have all the documents and receipts and pictures. There's not very often that people have a verified alibi because innocent people don't know that they need an alibi for a crime that they didn't know was going to be committed. But luckily for you, you needed a new phone and there were events going on. And so you are able to verify your innocence, which is fantastic. And of course, proves that they do have the right person in jail for these crimes. So let's get into the evidence for sure. Now, initially, I didn't think there was any way that you would be in Arkansas because I was looking at, court dates and everything. And I was like, there's just no way that he would get down here and back. And there's supervised things involved here. So I just don't see how it's possible. But then you had the doctor's appointment. So you did, in fact, come to Arkansas. But you left and went to the Apple store in St. Louis.
Yes. I personally, I'm a Christian. I personally think God protected me in this situation because without some pretty serious circumstantial evidence, I think that trial could have gone very differently. I mean, because they were after me, both guns blazing, and I mean, even the prosecutor said to me, "Why are they after you? Why are they pointing at you? You know what? Weren't you guys really close?" It's like, I think that the reason's obvious, but and that's what they went back to. Yeah. I think the one of the biggest things was I had already kind of started moving back to Illinois. I was I think at this time I was not sentenced yet. I cannot remember. It's a lot has happened in my life the last 3 years, but either way, I was in some type of supervised position, by the state, so that I couldn't just do anything I wanted to do. I think at that point, yes, I had a doctor's appointment. That was one of the biggest, another big piece of evidence is I had kept all those records. They're electronic now, and it's not like I have to keep them on in a folder or anything. So I took that and screenshotted it, and gave it passed it on to the U.S. attorneys, and the Apple store, as you mentioned, that was towards the end of that was me leaving Arkansas and heading back to Illinois through Missouri in St. Louis, and had my phone was, I think I dropped it and cracked the screen, and I had insurance, so I set up an appointment, and then I went to that appointment and got it replaced. And there was a receipt. I had the obviously with insurance you have the deductible and all that, so it was all reflected in the final documentation. Although the testimony was never given, my understanding was there was an Apple representative there to verify the receipt that I had provided to the prosecutors, the authenticity. It was to verify there was an Apple representative that was there at the courthouse, in the federal courthouse, to verify the authenticity of the receipt. I think if the case had gone differently and Josh's team had been able to actually bring me onto the stand, the U.S. attorneys probably were going to bring multiple other witnesses, or at least a couple of them, to prove my side of the story, I guess.
Which is why I don't think that they called you. But I will say, I think, to me, I thought it gave you more credibility. Again, this is just my perspective. You were already in the clear. Nobody thought that you were in Arkansas at all. So you were already in the clear. However, you semi put yourself in the line of fire by saying, hey, no, I did come to Arkansas to go to this doctor's appointment. But then I immediately left and I went to the Apple store. I've got a receipt from the Apple store. There's security footage from the Apple store that's going to prove I'm there. There's a representative who came down to Arkansas from St. Louis to testify in the event you got called as a witness that no, he was absolutely in St. Louis at the time of this crime, so he could not have done it. But for me, it gave you credibility that you even admitted that you had come to the doctor's appointment, because you certainly did not have to put yourself in the line of fire, but you're like, I've got nothing to hide. Yes, I came to Arkansas for this doctor's appointment, but here's proof that when this crime was going on, I was legitimately all the way in St. Louis, which is, what, 5 or 6 hours from Springdale?
5 hours, I think. 5 hours.
And you had documentation to back it up, as well as an eyewitness who was prepared to testify should you be called in a worldwide trial. So, I mean, bless that person for being, you know what I'm saying? They were willing to, they offered to come, right? Which was huge. So,
yeah,
I mean, it went to me, I'm like, how can somebody even think, oh, it's a possibility? Like, how do we know Caleb Williams didn't do it? Oh, no, we actually know for a fact he didn't do it. Like, we have unrefutable evidence. We know he didn't do it.
Yeah, I think part of it as well, the timeline when I initially spoke with the prosecutors and Homeland Security, Mr. Faulkner, Agent Faulkner, was that it's very difficult to remember things in great detail 2 years later. Some people have that ability, and I found that I do not at this point.
No, I can't remember what I did 2 days ago, so
yeah.
completely agree.
And so they're asking me questions, and I gave answers to the best of my knowledge. And then I dug back um, into my life to like see, hey, is there anything here that, is there any clues as to where I was based on metadata, based on text messages, those things that could kind of help. Because I was really nervous. I didn't ask for this. I've tried to move on from as much as I could from these other things, and this was just kind of dredging up the past. And they were gonna, I would have been shocked if they weren't going to just ream me over the coals and try to paint me as just some nasty person. And you know, people evolve. And although bad decisions were made in my past, that doesn't mean that I live in the same way and am the same person that I was 3 years ago. And there, I don't have. I mean, because of the circumstances I've been in, uh, I've had to go through different evaluations and such that show that I don't have a predilection for deviant behaviors. All that to say, when I went back, Josh, I had found so many text messages that like one with Josh that kind of cast some doubt onto what I had originally said. I didn't even know that. It caused, I think, a lot of people, probably including yourself, to think I was trying to help Josh. Ultimately, what I wanted in the situation was for justice to be done. So if Josh did it, then it'd be proven that he did it. If Josh didn't do it, then it'd be proven that he didn't do it. He had every opportunity in court to do that. The burden of proof was on the government, not on him. And I mean, everything pointed in that direction. There was no, I didn't, I'll actually go even further back for myself. When I knew he was under investigation for this, I thought, oh my goodness, he's being framed. Somebody else is putting this onto him. Like, there's no way. Or maybe my actual initial thought was that somebody that worked for him did it. I mean, his defense was what I actually thought, because there was times that I was like, ooh, man, he's got this, that he had employees there that, frankly, they look kind of rough. That sounds unkind, and people could say things about me, but like this, I mean, I just thought, okay, and that was my initial thought. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And what changed for me in this was his going from one person to the next. William Mize and what's Randall Berry and other people, and then me. I mean, I was I got a phone call one day, and somebody said, "Hey, there's a private investigator at your house wanting to talk to, that's here for Josh Duggar and wanting to talk to you." That was scary. The saddest thing is, in my naivete, I thought I gave them the benefit of the doubt again, and he basically lied to my face. He twisted it up and made it sound like they needed some kind of character witness, and that was where where I came to the point. I was like, you do realize, as much as I want to be, help Josh out, if this is what's happened, and I'd love to tell him, oh yeah, he's a great guy, because this is the guy I know. It's not going to do any good for you to bring me up there with what's happened in my past. And I think as a private investigator, you would know that. And he just kept on trying to get in a circle with me and and I just said, look, I'm not talking to you unless I talk to a lawyer first. He pushed, and it never worked out. And he just kept texting me after that, trying to get me to give him some information, until I just blew him off, until he finally texted and said, hey, I want to give you a subpoena, to which I ignored him. and he contacted, he went in a circle trying to talk to me, trying to ambush me with the subpoena, and I wouldn't arrange it. I made him work for it, made their company work for it, because I didn't appreciate being dragged to Arkansas.
At that point, you obviously realized something was amiss, because you were told they wanted you for one reason, and you knew there was no way that was the reason. So you were already catching on to the fact that something's not right here. You just didn't know you were going to be the scapegoat at the time. that the investigator originally showed up. They were pitching it to you that they wanted you to be some character witness, and you rubbing two brain cells together was like, the math ain't mathin', that makes no sense. So you already knew something was wrong, but they
Yeah.
were leading you to believe they were wanting you to be some character witness, and lo and behold, you were about to be the scapegoat for this worldwide trial.
Yes, and even then, the sad thing is, I still, even when he was saying that to me, I was thinking, man, they're just not thinking through this. It took a couple phone calls for me to be like, wow, this is real. Cause I was warned that what was going on. Somebody called me and told me, hey, don't talk to this guy, and I was like, well, I mean, we talked about other things, we didn't talk about that. And then I made a phone call to somebody close to the situation, and they warned me as well that that was what was happening, and that's all she wrote. And like I said, I avoided him like the plague, and I didn't feel the need to respond to him. I had no
As you
obligation.
shouldn't.
No, no, and I didn't feel like he deserved any of my time ever again. Uh,
He
but
doesn't. So I
no,
have no judgment there. But I guess, I mean, there's no point in hiding it now. I obviously have spoken to you previously the past few months. And one of the things that I drilled you about was the emails. I was like, what were you thinking? Why did you send these emails? And I was super hard on you. I was like,
yeah.
did you send these for malice reasons? Did you send this because you panicked? Did you send this because you just word vomit things? So you were just word vomiting out, like, I had nothing to do with this. Here's everything. So I really drilled you about those emails. And, I was doing it just to make sure we were getting the whole story. But I'm like, why would you ever do this? Because it became such a big point of contention. And I
Yeah.
think that we should probably discuss that just to clear it up, that no, you weren't throwing anybody a bone. No, you didn't send that email with malice intent. You literally just were like, oh, no, 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 no. And word vomited up all of the proof that you didn't do it. And you really went above and beyond. I think that's what got me. I was like, this guy literally sent text messages, pictures with the EXIF data on it, receipts, witnesses. Like, he literally sent in a whole defense, and we already knew he had nothing to do with it. And so that's why I gave you such a hard time about it. But I think you should probably clarify to
Well,
everyone that, like, yes, you just panicked and sent this email with literally everything to prove you had nothing to do with it.
well, to what you're saying, you're right. And I've gone through stuff in the past, and so I wanted it to be. I know, like, you and I can sit here and say, I know you didn't do it because the evidence was pointing in a different direction, and I did panic. That is accurate, very accurate. But just because you think I didn't do it, and maybe even half of the world doesn't think I did it, or more, most people didn't seem to think I did it. I appreciated
No.
that. That doesn't mean that in a court of law that makes a big difference. And so I was looking for things that I thought would, one, prove that I was not there, that I did not do it, and also help those prosecutors understand that I was not trying to mislead them in any way, shape, or form. I was trying to give them the information to do their job, which was to try this case. And if that meant, again, if Josh was guilty, he's guilty, and if he's not, he's not. But I'm not part of this. I really don't want to be involved in the situation at all. And so I think I sent 60 or 80
Oh, it was
documents.
a lot.
Yeah,
It was a
I
lot. But the reason why I gave you such a hard time about it when I called you that day, I thought, what? Why? But the reason was, like I said, I was just shocked because, one, having looked at everything, I already knew you didn't do it. It wasn't possible for you to have done it. And I knew you were safe. And I was like, there's no way they can call him up to the stand because on cross, they'll kill everything they ever said on direct. Like, they'll crucify them on cross, the prosecution will. So calling him up would be a huge mistake. But what got me was the email was so detailed with so much proof. I was like, this kid sent more of a defense for a crime he didn't do in this email then Josh Duggar's defense team put on in 2 weeks of trial. And that's why I gave you such a hard time, because I was like, this entire trial, the defense team has not provided information like to prove their client didn't do it. And you send this email in a panic that's like, no, I really didn't do it. Here's everything. So it's just, when you just think about it from like a comparing it.
Compelling.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're comparing it, it's like, here's somebody that we already knew didn't do it, couldn't have done it. There's no way they would have been dumb enough to call you up there, but you were worried about it and you handed up more evidence than they put on in 2 weeks. And so, that's why I gave you a hard time, because I was just like, why?
I think their case itself was obfuscate and redirect, like constantly moving things around and trying to. It was maybe this person, some hacker in Russia did it. Like it was Caleb, because somehow I was so impressed. I was like, man, I didn't even know I was a hacker. I didn't know I was that capable on a computer. Like the things that they were saying I didn't even remember. It was crazy. I just it all caught me off guard. I didn't know what to do with it, and I think I went back in my mind when I saw some of these, like some of the headlines, like this guy trades in Bitcoin, and I remembered like 2017, back when Bitcoin had just kind of shot up a bunch. I bought some Bitcoin just to see what it was like, and Josh knew about it because we had talked about it, and so he was taking that information and trying to connect me up to something completely now I understand now I know there's a connection between Bitcoin and all those things, but it's just like, how this is such dirty pool. Like, it's ridiculous. You're taking something. I used Coinbase. It's an app. I wasn't using, I haven't traded in Bitcoin in years, but it was all the idea. That's all it takes. If they can connect some dots, that's all they have to do. And it was very disgusting to me. It was not friendship. Like, when I say I thought he was my friend, I really mean that. We spent a ton of time together. Like, he's one of the people that invited me down originally to Arkansas to live down there. Like, he had me in his home. He arranged where I was going to stay when I first came down there. I thought, wow, we're friends. He's changed. And then for all this to happen, it was a shocker for me. It was very difficult to process that. I didn't know what to say. Frankly, it's sad to me because, like I said, I really love the Duggars. I still love Josh. Like, when at the trial, when he looked scared, I empathize with people a lot. And so I hated that this happened. I understand crime and punishment. I get that, but I'm still going to empathize because I see there are so many collateral consequences, so many things. His family, his mom and dad. I understand people don't like certain things about what has happened in the past, but they're still a family. They still love their son. His wife, I get it. I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but I still look at and say, wow, that's so painful. His kids, and I have juggled this in my heart and mind. I've prayed for them. I have no intention to cause them harm. And talking to you tonight, I think really, and we've had this conversation a little bit, is it's just to shine light into what's happened here in the last few months and what actually occurred and the time frame that he committed his crime.
I told you,
mm-hmm.
I respect that you are dealing with a lot, having previously dealt with a lot. You're the scapegoat. You thought they were really your friends. And yes, I empathize with that. And that I never wanted you to say anything bad about them, because you still see them as, or think of them as, the people that were nice to you. And I totally respect that. But as I've always said to you, you owe it to yourself to say, no, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the scapegoat here. And there is no malintent. You're not doing it to get back at anyone or to throw shade at anyone. It's just simply, you didn't do it, and you owe it to yourself to make it known that you didn't do this. If you did something wrong, as you have shown in the past, you will own up to it and you will say, I made a mistake, I did something wrong. You owned it. You clearly didn't do this. We know that from obvious evidence, but you were very clearly trying to prove it. And again, said stuff you didn't have to say, like that you really were in Arkansas when no one would have known otherwise. But that to me, I was like, well, obviously he didn't do it because he put himself in Arkansas that week when he didn't have to, even though it was an irrelevant date because nothing occurred. But I'm saying still, you clearly trying. But one thing that I remembered a minute ago that we got to talk about during trial, and I don't think you were sitting behind me at that point because I think it was still possible that they could call you as a witness. So I think you were still out in the lobby. But one thing that they discussed were these shipping labels. So can you please talk about the shipping labels for everyone so that everyone knows that you did not go print the shipping labels? Let's debunk shipping label gate right now.
I had, and still kind of use it, an eBay store that I'll just sell various things to kind of supplement my income. I did not have a printer for a period of time when I was in Arkansas because I had to move out of the home I was renting, and I was in the process of moving and all that. So I asked Josh, could you print labels for me? And so on multiple occasions he printed those labels. I mean, I used to go hang out at his lot and the other lot all the time. I would help him sell cars at both lots. It was a way to make some money. I'd help him detail cars. I worked with these guys all the time. They were like family. I sent him those labels. He printed them off for me. And then when he's in trouble, he tried to paint it as if I had access all the time to his computer. In reality, I probably used that computer under 5 times in my entire life. And it wasn't because I didn't want to use his computer. It was one, it's a PC. And I didn't remember that clearly either, but I use Apple product mostly. It's a little plug there.
An Apple person myself here.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to use his computer, and I didn't need to use his computer. And most of the time, he was sitting in the chair. I mean, if he wasn't there, like.
But I just think it's so funny that they're like, well, he would print these labels. It's like, yeah, no, I literally emailed the defendant the labels, who printed them off and brought them back to the house where I was staying with them. I did not go print those labels.
Well, like you said, why would I? Why would I email them to him to do that? I don't know what. I think it was all about obfuscating. It was all about changing the narrative constantly and kind of confuse. If you bring up enough information to somebody, you can kind of be like, "Whoa, there's so much going on." That I think that was probably their goal with the jury. I don't know that, but there was a lot of information. I mean, in the days I sat there, I couldn't sit and listen to it, but I was sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting to go in there, and it was like, goodness gracious, there's so much happening. I don't know, beyond the desperation to pin that on me, I don't know what the logic was behind it, because it really didn't make a lot of sense. Like, there was times I'm pretty confident I would have gone there, hey, thanks for the label, taken it with me, gone somewhere else and chopped it up to fit my little tape, to fit on the box, and then shipped it off. And instead of, like, it, to me, there was better if he was truly innocent. There was 100 ways that he could prove that he was innocent. I wasn't there. I didn't. You know what I mean? Like me. I mean,
you literally handed over. Here's where I was. Here's my messages. Here's pictures of me somewhere else. Here's exif data. Here's eyewitnesses. It's like you literally word vomited out an entire defense for something that we already knew you didn't do. And yeah, if he didn't do it, then you would expect him to have something. And like I said earlier, you got lucky because most people don't have an alibi for a crime that they didn't know was going to occur. It just so happened that you got lucky with breaking your phone. I'm sure you didn't feel that way at the time, but you got lucky with the fact that you broke the phone and had to go pay for a new one and all of that because it ended up really helping you. Again,
Yes.
you are the perfect scapegoat. Had you been there and like actually been at the car lot and whatever, yeah, you would have been a great scapegoat, except for there's irrefutable evidence that you absolutely were not in the state, you were nowhere near that car lot, you absolutely did not do it. And at the end of the day, they have the right person in jail for this crime. And unfortunately, you were just collateral damage. But it's important that people know, no, it was not you. And we know that for a fact. We have proof of that.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, there was so much going against what Josh was trying to say. Again, his location and a pattern of deviant behaviors in the past, which I again had hoped were not his current activities or
Situation.
actions. Yeah, but that's obviously wasn't the case. And then the absolute lack of responsibility, meaning again, like I knew for me, one of the biggest parts of coming to a point that I was able to move past my past. I understand you can never change the past, but to make a difference and do good is to say, I was wrong. These actions caused harm, and this is what I'm doing to change. And it was like this constant flow of I didn't do it. The defendant is, and I think another thing I noticed, because lawyers are not supposed to lie. I mean, you and I would know that they're not supposed to. They can twist things up a little bit, and they can have alternative facts, but they're not supposed to lie. And one of the biggest things I noticed, and it's what started twisting me towards like, did he do this? Was back at the very beginning when he was arrested on these charges, and his defense came out and they said something, and I'm not, this is verbatim, but they said something along the lines of our client. I don't think they actually said he didn't do it. Like it was the way they said it, and I don't remember the wording, but it threw me a little bit because I thought, okay, if these lawyers are not saying that he didn't do it now, and then later on they did say it, but it was too little too late for me because I was watching for it. Where's that denial? If a lawyer's not saying it, then there's something going on here. Like there's enough evidence
about the recording, because in the recording, Josh says, I'm not admitting guilt. I'm not saying I didn't do it. And I was like, what are you like? Oh, come on.
I think the other thing with like after I heard that recording, I spent a ton of time with Josh, and I think he was his own downfall. It can be. So sometimes when people look like listening to him talk that day, I think he was trying to find out what they were looking for, and I think he was trying to talk his way out of it.
But he gave them way too much info.
Oh yeah, and anybody that is in trouble like that, especially somebody guilty, get a lawyer. You know what I mean?
Say nothing.
Say nothing. And truly, I think he sealed his own fate. And I hate to say, like, I don't look at that with joy. I find that sad, and it's tragic what happened all the way through for the victims of all that horrifying content, for his family, for all these people. But truly, he took these things and tried to find out what the feds were doing. You're not going to outsmart a special agent, and you're not going to outsmart a group of special agents or a bunch of U.S. attorneys. They don't have that position for no reason. They're extremely intelligent people.
They're the best. You can't hoodwink the hoodwinkers. You cannot do it.
No. And so he sealed his fate in that. And you know that I'm not a psychologist, but you know the idea of somebody comes in a house to look for something, like an agent or somebody. They come in there and they're looking around and they watch the person that's standing there. If they don't take them out of the room while they're searching for stuff, that person might look where they don't want you to look. And my personal opinion was that was what was happening. He was looking or saying what he didn't want them to say. He's like, was somebody doing this here? Was somebody?
Like, no, you have no reason to think that. For all you knew, it was tax evasion or something, or like literally
It,
anything but that. Like, if you were innocent and you're at work, I'm thinking tax evasion, drugs, something, a stolen car. Maybe I purchased a stolen car and didn't.
and
Literally anything but
you
that.
didn't know it. Yeah, because if the Department of Homeland Security shows up at your door, I would be like, I wouldn't know what to say. I'm like, okay, you just cooperate and you just sit there. Like, if they ask you questions, I would probably be like, hey, I want to talk to a lawyer after going through enough to know, like, you don't just say whatever, because that can be a problem too. But I wouldn't know what was going on. And so for him to say that to them, it was enough of a tell for me to say
You're
something's off
frozen.
here. Again, there was enough things lined up.
And basically, he got himself caught. He's his own worst enemy. Does it bother you that he's not taking any responsibility for it? Or you don't even have to answer this, but I'm just saying, if you want to answer this, does it bother you that he's not taking any responsibility for it? None of the family has. They've never once mentioned the victims at all. Does that bother you, or
I
how do you feel about that? You don't have to answer that question.
No, that's fine. I'll kind of answer my own way. I think some of the family has. It depends on the family member. Has come out and said something about victim. Like, I think Derek and Jill, Jill. I mean, Jeremy and Ginger. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just, there were certain members.
Oh no, yes. There's several family members that have come out and made statements, and I don't report on them because I respect the fact that they're not only victims but they're family members, and like you said, it is,
I see.
regardless of how you feel about these people, like, it actually is their real lives, their real people. That's their sibling that's about to go to prison, and regardless of how you feel about them, they're still human beings. So I normally don't report on, well, not normally, I don't report on their personal things,
Yeah.
and I did not
Can
report
you
on
hear me?
them at trial because I respect the fact that they were private citizens.
Hello.
But as far as, I guess, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, and Josh and Anna, I guess when I'm saying family, that's what I mean, because
Hello.
they wrote these Jim Bob basically had very selective memory throughout the trial. I know you didn't hear it because you weren't allowed to be in there, but Michelle's written a letter, as well as Anna, where they don't mention the victims at all. Basically, you've read the letters, we talked about this earlier today, but I fully expect Josh to get up at sentencing and say he's been wrongly persecuted. I don't know that he's going to do that. I just foresee that being the case. And for me, being non-biased to the best of my ability, and when the letters came out, I was really wanting someone to write a respectable letter at the least. I can at least respect somebody that's trying, that owns up. I mean, regardless of right, wrong, or otherwise, I can still respect if that's done. None of those letters did that. He's still saying he was wrongly convicted and is going to appeal according to what the defense's sentencing memorandum said. And I'm like, just do something halfway respectable. You've blamed everyone but the family dog. Just say, I did it. I messed up. It was wrong. It doesn't change anything. But at least do something respectable. Somebody.
It's just a sad story all the way around. There's no good answer to any of it. It's like, it's a situation where there was never going to be any winners, no matter what way you turn. And all that happened throughout the process, is he just can. It seems like they're just continued to drag more people into it, and the collateral consequences have continued to balloon and become worse throughout that. I think every time they tried to bring somebody else into this situation, it made things exponentially worse, because instead of, if you do something wrong and you acknowledge it, yes, the consequences for somebody that's on television or somebody's got some type of notoriety, it's going to be worse. It's just part of the way the world works. But to not do that has just harmed everybody in his family all the more, and himself. And I truly hope he does not get up at his sentencing date and say that. I don't think he would. It's not very logical.
It's not,
but if he does,
nothing has been, so fair game.
I know. I would hope his lawyers would look at him in the eye and say, "Don't do that. That's one of the dumbest things you could ever do." But when you sit in jail, for the little bit amount of jail I've had, it is a very difficult place to be for anybody, and it does mess with your mind a little bit. So if he's been sitting in there in solitary confinement, I wasn't in solitary confinement. People knew I was in there, and I don't really like talking about this, but if he could be sitting there thinking, "Oh, this will work," because you're in an echo chamber. You know, who is he talking to? It's his family. I don't know who all he's spoken with since he got in there, but I doubt there's a lot of people outside of that inner circle of people he spends time with, his lawyers, his family. So that would be my assumption. I don't know. I can't speak to that at all. Like I said, my contacts with them they're not what they used to be, and I don't doubt that they won't be in the future. I mean, I really care about these people. I pray for them. I pray for him. I don't want bad things to happen to him. There are consequences for our actions when you do something wrong, especially of this level. It's just going to damage people, and you have to acknowledge it, and you have to move. Once you acknowledge it, and you just do the next right thing every day, and eventually, good starts to come out of it. That's in my part of my faith is looking at. I believe in God. I believe in the thing in that, and in my faith defines me a lot. So when I see the future, I look at and say, I know God has good things in mind for me. I just have to do the next right thing. And I don't know his heart, Josh's heart. I don't know the Duggars' heart. I thought we were really close. But I do know if he doesn't acknowledge the wrong, I think it's just going to continue to escalate. And like if they sit and probably say the same thing, they're probably going to bring me up over and over and over again if they jump up to whatever appellate court is for Arkansas. And I don't think it's going to do him any good, even if he got another trial. There's nothing that proves that he didn't do it. Everything points in his direction. Everything says he did it. If I had seen an iota of evidence that maybe somebody else had done it, but he was there every time.
And like I said, as I've said to you for the past few months, mm-hmm. I think you saying something is invaluable because it helps kill that false narrative. So this false narrative of, oh, there's this boogeyman that did it, or oh, the scapegoat did it. You being willing to be vulnerable to come out and talk about it, to set the record straight, does a service in the fact that it only strengthens and solidifies beyond any doubt that you had nothing to do with it. And it weakens the argument that, yes, I'm sure they will continue to. So you're helping kill that false narrative for anyone that may have had any lingering doubts, and helping to solidify the prosecution's case. This is the right person. There are no doubts about that. And hopefully it will help prevent them from spewing that false narrative. It's now publicly been addressed. I mean, I've been telling you from the beginning, I've said, I know you didn't do it. You know, I'm not trying to like attack you when I ask questions or like make you feel nervous because I'm asking questions. I know you didn't do it, but I want other people to know as well that you didn't do it and how we know for a fact you didn't do it, so that people know the right person is in jail and move forward from this without this false narrative lingering behind everybody.
I mean, again, it's going to be interesting what the judge puts out there as his final sentence. I hope he's just. I can't envy his position as a judge, and I hope Josh learns and gets some help for this stuff. I truly want that for him. I don't want him to continue this pattern of behavior. It's so sad. No matter what happens, it's such a loss. You know, he had every opportunity to change, and I don't know what happened. But anyway, you have to take that.
You did.
So anyway, I appreciate you letting me come on here, and I really
I appreciate you. Again, thank you. I know we've talked about this for months. I know this was very hard for you to do this. I completely know why you would not want to do this. And I know you've had to deal with me saying, hey, look, help us clear this, help us clear the air. And so, again, I just want to thank you, truly thank you, because I know this wasn't easy. And you are putting yourself in a vulnerable state to clear the air. And so I do respect that. And just want to thank you for, putting up with my questions all this time, first off, and then actually doing the podcast so that we can put a rest to this. So truly thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. It was nice to meet you in person.
Again.
Yeah, it's a little different, but thank you. And I wish you well, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of keep everybody informed as things continue on.
Hey, that's all we can hope for, and I'm sure I don't know, I'll probably send you sentencing or something afterwards. I try to stay in the loop.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. We're all doing our best. But thank you again so much. I really do appreciate it.
Have a good night, SoJo.